Hey, I ran across this article this morning, and it really caught my attention because it talks about a question that a lot of my patients and people out here in social media land, they message me. And the question is, Doc, I don't know what to eat. Confused about what to eat, and science can help. So caught my attention right off the bat, and what I did was I perused through it. And right off the bat, I agreed with a lot of what, let's see, who wrote this? Uh, PK Newby. And she has a book, and she works at Harvard University. Very, very well written article, and points out some very major points. Okay. And it says here, if you are nodding in agreement, because a lot of people are confused about what to eat, you're not alone. More than 80% of Americans are befuddled. And she goes on to state, just from scientific research, saying that science says plants are better for you and our planet, which is pretty obvious. A lot of people know this. We were always told as children, eat your veggies. Now, in this day and age of information overload, we get these kind of questions. Well, do I eat paleo, gluten-free, Whole30, vegan, vegetarian, fruitarian? Now there's a new one, breatharian, right? And the science. I'll be honest with you. When I saw this and it says science can help, I have to disagree with what they're saying there. I don't think that the science can help, just because a lot of the research studies, they point out obvious things that most people already know. Now there's fringe issues about, now there's the latest fad, which is the carnivore diet. There's the ketogenic diet, there's the Atkins, South Beach. All these different things have their scientific backing. So there's a lot of this research that goes on, that you can use to back up what you are trying to defend. Now, there's some stuff that she talks about here with blue zones and all that kind of stuff, and I like the blue zones, I like that, but there are some things, and there's the biggest issue, and I'm going to talk about that. But before I talk about all of that kind of stuff, I wanted to point out a couple things. She's really calling out a lot of the social media influencers, celebrities, called celebrity junk science, stuff like what Gwyneth Paltrow was saying, and I had to laugh. I had to laugh at this tweet. Me going to school for 6 years of nutrition, plus countless hours of continuing ed and experience, and then Gwyneth Paltrow, she breathes, and the world, OMG, what diet do you follow? And this is, it's human nature. We look at celebrity influence and what they're doing, and we want to follow because it makes us feel like them. And we see a lot of the top social media influencers, bloggers, and she's saying that a lot of them have no expertise and none were scientists. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that. There are a lot of social media influencers that do tout a lot of great information, and you know what? Not necessarily a lot of it's going to be backed by science, because there are things, guys, that just because it's not backed, or any type of scientific research can back for it, you got to go by results. And there's this thing called the N=1 experiment, where, hey, just because it worked for you, it may not work for somebody else, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it was bad. Hey, if it worked for you, it worked for you. That's the name of the game. So if it works, that should be our measuring stick, right? And just because you find something, and we can't make blanket statements, right? Saying, and this is the whole thing I wanted to get with it, this video, was we can't just make blanket statements and saying that the plant-based diet is the best for everybody. Okay. Let's go on and talk about the rest of the things that they talk about in this article. I really like I really like the last part, the wrap up part. It says there's 3 steps that'll help you navigate this rocky terrain. And I'm totally in agreement with this. Begin by asking critical questions when digesting diet news. Right? You got to ask questions. A lot of times, the way our brain works is we see a headline, we see a celebrity attached to it, and we automatically just dive in and look at what they're doing, and we adopt that for us. Right? I don't necessarily agree with this part. It says, does the writer have an advanced degree in nutrition? I mean, I know a lot of people that have advanced degrees in nutrition. I know a lot of medical doctors that really don't know stuff. They can regurgitate stuff, but they really don't have a grasp and an understanding of that. Are there references to peer-reviewed studies? Again, that doesn't hold a lot of weight. It holds some weight, but not a lot of weight, just because a lot of the research studies out there are biased. And there are ulterior motives. I've stated that before. This is a real big one. Are miracle cures or quick results promised? Yeah, if they're saying, this is the miracle or this will, you got to kind of take it with a grain of salt. Second one, remember, what filters through our news feeds often comes via algorithms. And that is a huge one. I'm trying to find the article that they're linking to. No, it's not it. Let's see. So here's the article talking about how our news feeds are filtered. And a lot of you may not know this, some of you may be aware of this. But they state here, 61% of millennials garner news primarily through social media. It's pretty obvious. But in the process, we trigger algorithms that curate our feeds. These cherry-picking things which we are likely to agree and jettison information that does not appear to fit our preferences, often at the cost of accuracy and balance. So here we have social media platforms that will give us more of what we look at, right? So we don't necessarily get a proper view of information. We get a biased view of information just because of how the algorithms work, right? Facebook is going to show you more of the stuff that agrees with what you already look at. That's the way that they work. And the real reason behind that is to drive ads to you. Right? They track your behavior on what things you like, the websites you peruse, and that will be shown to you over and over and over again. Just like, my wife and I always joke around, like we just talked about camping gear, and then all of a sudden in our news feeds, all these things for camping gear shows up. Right? We never see an ad or an article stating the opposite of why we shouldn't be doing something, right? We see something that's going to sell us more in the direction that we're always looking toward. So, yeah, there is this bias towards the things that we're getting from social media. And the problem with that is that a lot of people currently that just live in social media land, they look at the information that they're being fed and they take that as fact. So I am in agreement here with all of these things that we're being fed. And she talks about confirmational bias here, that we're going to tend to believe more of the things that we already currently believe. So I see a lot of patients that I tell them that we need to make these changes, but because of their confirmational bias, they're always going to stick to the information that they're already fed, even though that's totally opposite from the truth. One of the big ones was Steve Jobs. He had a strict confirmational bias towards just eating fruits. And that's in and of itself not a healthy practice. Okay? So all of these different fads going on that happens in our life, it gets curated in our social media feeds, and we're being fed more and more and more of that. Okay, just for you guys to understand there. And then the last part, she says, nutrition isn't confusing. We all have cherished traditions and values, blah, blah, blah. And I'm in agreement with that. I totally agree. Nutrition, we make it harder than it should be. As you got to look into our traditions. As hunter-gatherers, we hunted for food, and we ate what was grown locally, what was in season, and on occasion we fished, we hunted, and we consumed those things. And it was about survival. Eating was to survive. Nowadays, eating is more of a social thing. It's more of a physiological and aesthetic issue. And there's a lot of controversy that surrounds that. And what pays in the end what pays for it is our physiology. Okay. So what I always encourage people to do is start learning how to think and decipher information and look at it for what it is. And then you can't also go towards the total extreme of being cynical. And then there's a whole subset of people on social media land that are totally cynical. And it's often mistaken for intelligence. All these people being very cynical and spouting off all of these anti-whatever. That's also other part of the spectrum. You got to be able to decipher information and look at it for what it is, right? Now, getting back to this whole thing about plant-based diet, I don't agree with 100% that plant-based diets are better for you, because there's a lot of inherent issues that people face with just having a plant-based diet. A lot of people will succumb to digestive issues because of it. When you see the amount of lectins and the amount of gluten, all of these plant defense mechanisms that will wreak havoc upon our gut. Now, that's precipitated by the level of chronic stress that we're under. So if you have high levels of chronic stress, you get gut barrier disturbances, which then predisposes you for an abnormal interaction between you and the food that you're eating. Okay, so a lot of times you can't just say, I'm just going to go on a plant-based diet, because you have all of these other issues that you need to solve first. Now, as an overall dietary guidelines, what I like is the Weston A. Price. The Weston A. Price, Dr. Weston A. Price went all around the world and studied all of these indigenous people and found these commonalities. Okay? And it's basically summed up, they ate what was grown locally in season. That's pretty much it. Whatever they needed to do to survive. And these people were very healthy. Very, very healthy. Okay? Now, there are outliers out there. Okay? But like I said, look at these things, and these are just great guidelines to follow. The whole unprocessed foods, pretty normal there. Staying away from artificial sweeteners. Use only pasteurized wine or beer in strict moderation. Using only stainless steel, cast iron, glass, or good quality enamel. Okay? Food-based supplementation, plenty of sleep, positive thoughts. These are just general guidelines. That's just good things to follow, rather than just saying, you need to just be on XYZ, right? She does state here that more than 75% of your meal should comprise of vegetables, fruits, whole grain, and protein sources, plant-based protein sources. Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. But again, a lot of times people are going to read into this and say, I need to be a vegetarian. And there are inherent issues with that if your physiology and your geography and your ancestry doesn't agree with that. Okay? So, I'm not in this video. I'm not here to bash the article. I'm not here to tell you exactly what you need. I just want to point out that there's more to it than just reading somebody's social media posts. It's all about taking the information, deciphering it, and then seeing what works for you, what gets you the results. All right, this is Dr. Mike. Hopefully you enjoy this. Be well. Aloha.